The last video talked about how to or what common stock is and the risks associated with common stock. Another way to directly own securities is to purchase bonds. Now, bonds basically represent a promise to pay the holder of the bond, or what we call bondholders, in some cases a stream of income called interest, and then what they call principal at the maturity of the bond. Stocks don't have maturity dates. They are expected to last forever or until the company goes bankrupt or gets bought by another corporation or something of that nature. Bonds, on the other hand, do have a limited life. And basically, issuing a bond is just a way for a corporation to raise money. And that's what stock is as well. But the money that a corporation raises through a bond must be repaid, and if the corporation can't repay the interest and the principal, then the bondholders can bring the company to bankruptcy court. Companies don't like to claim bankruptcy, and so they make every effort to repay the interest and principal that they owe the bondholders. Now, a corporation could just borrow money from a bank and repay the bank rather than issuing bonds, but uh, sometimes corporations need to raise a lot more money than a bank is willing to lend. For instance, I know maybe it was about a year ago, Apple sold $3 billion worth of bonds. It would have been difficult for Apple to find a bank willing to lend them $3 billion because most banks aren't willing to lend $3 billion to one single um, borrower. It's too risky from the bank's perspective. And so that's basically why companies issue bonds. Rather than asking one borrower to lend them a great deal of money, they ask many borrowers. I said that wrong. Rather than asking one lender to lend them a great deal of money, they ask many lenders to lend them small amounts of money by selling them bonds with the promise to repay them the interest and principal. So I'm going to show you uh, well, I used the wrong website. I'm trying out the new Windows 10 browser, and it lets you highlight things. So I wanted to show you, well, I chose a bigger highlighter than I really meant to. I want to show you the bonds that are issued here by Goldman Sachs. And you can see Goldman Sachs actually has 3 bonds on this page. I went to Yahoo's bond screener and just asked it to show me bonds that had 10 years to maturity approximately and a certain coupon rate. So Goldman Sachs may actually have more bonds out than are listed here, but we can see they have at least 3 bonds that have 10 years to maturity remaining. A corporation can have, you know, a few dozen, if not more than that, bond issues outstanding with different coupon rates and different maturities, because the company may need to borrow money at lots of different points in time before they've repaid all their previous debt. So the fact that Goldman Sachs has 3 bond issues on this page is not surprising or unusual. But the one I'm interested in is this middle one, and I didn't do a very good job. Well, actually, they're all very similar, but I'll talk about the middle Goldman Sachs one, and I didn't do a good job keeping my highlighter straight. But this particular bond, and I'm going to pop it over here for a minute, and y'all can't see it, but I will be able to. So this bond by Goldman Sachs has a couple of bits of interesting information. It tells me the price was 110.5, and the coupon percent, I'm just getting this straight from the website, and then it matures on September 15th of 2025. And then a couple of other interesting bits. It has a Fitch rating of an A, and then it's not callable. So I want to explain what all that means. And I should have had Excel open before, but I forgot. It'd actually probably help if I were to draw a picture, but I'm not set up right now to draw something. So for this particular bond, and I need to look up one more thing, and I'm actually going to pop this back over because I want to show you what I'm going to look up. So that was the middle one. Oh, it's not letting me click on it. That's annoying. I'll go to it here. So one other thing that I'm interested in is how often it pays interest. And this bond is different than most corporate bonds in that it pays interest every month. Most corporate bonds pay interest semi-annually. I've never actually seen one that pays interest monthly, so that's kind of interesting. So I want to explain how that works, and I will do that here. Sorry, I've got to I've got to get this up so I can see it. Since it's already past September the 15th, the next payment won't be made until October because it makes payments monthly. So on October the 15th of 2015, it's going to make another bond payment. It'll make a bond payment again on November the 15th of 2015. Oops. It's just treating that as a calculation instead of a date. It seems like everything that can go wrong with this recording will, but hopefully they'll all go wrong at the beginning. I just want to format this as a date. Oh gosh. There we go. And ideally what Excel will do is look at the dates, the fact that I've put a month between each one, and then just extrapolate to figure out that I want monthly dates over here. And I'm not going to do them all. Just show you that there's a stream of payments every single month. Goldman Sachs will pay whoever owns these bonds, and it could be, 100,000 different individuals or mutual funds or other investors who own these bonds. But what they'll pay them is going to be the coupon rate of 5% times 1,000. Now that 1,000 was not on the website anywhere, but this is a corporate bond, and corporate bonds have what's called a principal amount of 1,000 typically. So to calculate the interest payment that they'll make to the bondholders either every month or every 6 months or sometimes every year, you take the coupon rate, which was 5%, and multiply it by the par value, which is 1,000, and then you divide that by, if they make payments every month, you divide it by 12. If they make payments every 6 months, you would divide it by 2. So you just divide it by how often per year they pay interest. So these bondholders aren't going to get a whole lot, $4.17 a month, but when you add that up over the course of a year, I'm just going to take this $4.17 and multiply by 12. When you add up all 12 months that they would pay you interest of $4.16, that would total $50 a year, which is the same as the 5% coupon rate times $1,000. But you can see they're just spreading it out in little increments over every month. So essentially every single month you're going to get $4.17 from owning this bond, assuming Goldman Sachs doesn't go bankrupt. They will pay $4.17 to each bond holder through, it looks like, September the 15th of 2025. So basically, I'm just going to put a bunch of dots here to show all the months between June 15th, 2018 through 9/15, 2025, because they're going to be still paying $4.16. And then finally, on the very last day of maturity for this particular bond, they'll pay you the $4.16 plus the maturity value of 1,000. So you get $1,004.17. So, um, as a bondholder, if you bought this particular bond, here's what you'd be getting: $4, and I'll carry it out so we don't have a lot of rounding errors. You get $4.17 approximately every month, times 12 months in the year, and then there's 10 years left until maturity because this bond matures in September of 2025. Plus, then you'd get $1,000 at maturity. So basically, if I'd completed all these dates and not just put some dots there representing the dates that I skipped, if I summed all of column B, it should total $1,500. But you're not getting it all at once. Most of the $1,500 you won't get until September 15th, 2025, and then you'll just be getting little payments of $4.16 for each bond that you own of Goldman Sachs each month for the next decade. So what we also know is how much you'd have to pay for the bond. That was represented on the price section of, let's see if I still have that up there. So again, it's this particular bond right here. This price, it's 110.5, and technically that's 110.5% of the face value, or what they call sometimes par, or what they also call sometimes principal. And that's $1,000 for a corporate bond. So to buy this bond, you'd pay 110.5% times $1,000. So that'd be $1,105. Whoops, would be the cost of this particular bond. So today you'd have to pay $1,105 for cash flows totaling $1,500, which again I got from that calculation. Again, the $1,500 isn't received all in a lump sum. It's spread out over two types of future cash flows. One of the future cash flow types is this annuity of $4.17, and the other future cash flow is this lump sum of $1,000. I know it says $1,417, but the $417 is part of the annuity stream. So I could actually calculate the rate of return that I would earn on this bond, but it would require combining an annuity calculation and a lump sum calculation, and I'm not going to require that y'all do that. I think that's a little more advanced than I want to go for Finance 216. So basically, I have used all this information to look at the cash flows this particular bond would generate for me if I were to buy it. And then I just have to decide, do I think $1,105, which is the current price, is that a fair price for me to pay for a stream of cash flows that totals $1,500? And this price fluctuates all the time. If I were to look up this bond next week, it probably wouldn't have the same price associated with it. So these prices fluctuate just like stock prices do. Now, one other thing that I know about this bond is it has a Fitch rating of an A. Corporations issue, hundreds of thousands of bonds. Not one corporation, but corporations in aggregate issue many, many, many bonds. And the bonds have contracts associated with them. And some of the contracts say, okay, this particular bond has collateral serving or are allocated to it. For instance, like if I were to purchase a house and borrow money from a bank to buy that house. The house itself serves as collateral, and if I don't pay off my mortgage, the bank can come and take my house, sell my house, and use the cash to pay the bank what it's owed. The same with my car. But if I were to take out, so again, that my house serves as collateral on that loan. But if I were to take out a personal line of credit without any collateral, that's riskier for the bank. And they're going to charge me a higher rate on that loan than they would on a mortgage because my personal line of credit has no collateral. So corporations, when they issue bonds, they'll say, okay, for this particular bond, we're going to assign this asset as collateral for it. That would make it less risky than a bond that doesn't have collateral associated with it. There are businesses, Fitch's is one, that will read all of these bond contracts and then grade the bond and say, is it really risky? Is it not that risky? How financially strong is the company? Is it close to bankruptcy? Does it have a strong proven history of making debt repayments? What have you. And so they'll grade the bond, and somewhere over here I have a grading list. Okay, here it is. So there are three major bond rating agencies: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch's. And I'm going to talk about Fitch's because that's the rating that's on the bond website that we've been looking at. There are two tiers of ratings. They're what they call investment grade and speculative grade, or sometimes you'll hear that called below investment grade or junk bonds. And the bond we were looking at had a grade of an A. So it fell right here, which is sort of in the middle of the investment grade. It's not the highest grade bond in the investment grade, but it's not the lowest either. It's an A, which means that it's, I would say, of medium risk. It's not low risk. This would be the lowest risk corporate bond that there is. Y'all may have heard of AAA corporate bonds. Or that the United States has a AAA rating. That's just the best quality rating you can get in terms of lending the country money or lending a company money. A AAA rating is going to get you the lowest rates, which is good when you're talking about repaying money. But the bond we were looking at had just an A rating. So not great, but not horrible at all. What that means is it's got some medium degree of risk. And let's see. I'm going to have to go back to the wrong one. I'm trying to find that bond thing again. Here's another tidbit of information that you would be interested in as a bondholder. Remember how I said that bonds are an annuity stream and a lump sum stream? And so calculating like the rate of return you would earn as from being a bond investor is complicated, and I wasn't going to require that y'all do it. Well, interestingly enough, this website calculates that rate for you, and it's called the yield to maturity. This rate represents the annual rate of return you would earn if you were to buy the bond for its current price of $1,105, and you hold it to maturity. You never sell it. You can sell bonds once you've bought them, but this rate assumes you don't sell it. It assumes you hold it to maturity, and then at maturity you get the face value of $1,000, which again, that $1,000 is not on this website anywhere. So this is a better rate than my CDs are paying me. My laddered CD, I am earning 2% on the 5-year bond, or sorry, 5-year CD. This is almost double that. It is, however, quite a bit riskier than my CD because there is some chance that Goldman Sachs, which is a corporation, could go bankrupt prior to the maturity of this particular bond. And the bank that my CD is in is not likely to go bankrupt. And even if it does, my CD is covered under FDIC, which is federal insurance. And it might take me a little while to get my money back from that CD, but I would get it back.